So great. Then I think we can already start. So, dear everyone,
Oh dear.
I welcome you today at Hogwarts Pottercast. It's a water series with me when I call guests, usually water experts, climate experts, yes, and they share their experience and their knowledge here with you, with the young audience of Hogwarts. Basically, about the structure of the podcast. So, the discussion will be for around 60 minutes, and if you stick till the end, then in the last 15 minutes, you will be able to give your questions to our speaker. So, if during the discussion you have a question that pops up in your mind, you are welcome to write it down in the comment section of the last message in the channel, and then at the end, hopefully, our speaker will answer that question. So, we can start. Shakhnoza, how are you? How do you feel?
Amazing. I'm very excited. Thanks for inviting me. Do you want
Yes.
an introduction?
Great, yes. So, everyone, let me introduce you Shahnoza one more time. So, Shahnoza is a climate negotiator, young climate negotiator from Uzbekistan. She has experience of organizing LCOY, giving guest lectures at such events like Young Climate Champions, and she has also a huge experience of attending such events like COP30. She has also outstanding writing skills, and she has been the main one of the main authors of the national. Could you please correct me on that? National Youth Statement, right? Yes, National Youth Statement. I have read that document. I loved every part of it, and hopefully, if we have time, we will discuss that one too. Today in the session. So Shakhnoza was so kind that she prepared a little introductory presentation for us about the role of climate negotiator, because as our audience, I'm me too, I also have very little knowledge about it. So the stage is yours, Shahnaza.
Much. I love presentations, and I promise that it's all going to be pictures. So let me share my screen, if I may. Um, so just another introduction of myself. Is it visible?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. Yes. So, as I am a climate activist. I have been a climate activist since I was 16 years old. My primary focus has been, since the beginning, climate education and youth involvement. And over the years, I have shifted more into youth participation in climate diplomacy, in national and international climate policy. And for the past 2 years, I have been a negotiator following the climate adaptation negotiations at COPs. Last year in Baku, this year in Belém, in Brazil. I'll talk more about that. So this is just some pictures from my activism, climate education activism journey at UK-based nonprofit called Climate Science. Some of you might have heard about Climate Science Olympiad. So I did different jobs there. I started as a translator and then did the work internationally, worked on localizing climate education in Uzbekistan. For instance, this is our CEO who came to Tashkent a few years back, and we signed an MOU with the ministry, with now the Committee of Environment of Uzbekistan. And we did lots of projects with UNICEF and our communities. I am also part of a consultative committee of Turkic and Central Asian states. And these are just some more pictures from our ministerial dialogue during the climate forum in Samarkand last year. I was also, my policy engagement also goes into being engaged with the process of the formation of the NDC 3.0 of Uzbekistan. So NDC is basically the main submission of every country under the Paris Agreement. It's basically a roadmap of a country in terms of their climate ambitions, targets, and priorities. Then I think we're gonna talk more about this throughout this podcast. But basically, I just wanted many projects being done in Uzbekistan for the youth engagement in the environmental agenda. So projects like Young Climate Champions, eco camps, and eco schools. And I was supporting projects like this as well last year. Then we have also organized climate negotiations, the project that we basically made from scratch. Then I was, as Nargis already said, an LCOY organizer. We'll be having an LCOY this year as well. We might talk about this as well. I would invite everyone to apply when the applications will be open. So it was a part, LCOYs are part of a global movement, local conference of the youth with over 100 young participants, experts, all of our partners. And as Nargis mentioned, a part of that was also writing the national youth statement and basically capacity building of youth in climate policy. And the statement is basically given to our government and to the global YOUNGO, the Youth Constituency for UN Climate Change. And it's basically just the suggestions of youth of what should be done in terms of our climate policy. And it was done through the process of consulting, surveying, and talking with a lot of youth across the country. And the statement was also presented in front of the Senate in November, which was great. And just to show off a little bit, we are very proud that our efforts were integrated into the, as I mentioned, NDC 3.0 of Uzbekistan. And for the first time, Uzbekistan's NDC had a whole chapter on children and youth. And they specifically outline our efforts, like the LCOY and National Youth Statement, which then my negotiation path started by being nominated by our ministry to participate in the Climate Youth Negotiators program, which is a global program, which for 2 years have these are also amazing people who were nominated for the first cohort of the program in Uzbekistan. And they have trained us and they have financially supported me to attend these COPs. We will probably talk a lot about COPs, about annual climate summits and the negotiations that happen there. But these are basically some vibes, some pictures from the past COP. We might talk about this as well, and about the challenging process of negotiations, and just COP had a lot of, not as much as we want to, but Central Asian youth and the side activities that we did there. Some more Uzbekistan at COP, at COP30 and the last COP in Baku. Yeah, I also got to attend. I love pictures. I got to attend the meeting of UN Secretary General and the youth during COP30. And we'll talk more about this, but here are some pictures for you of the negotiations and the complicated process the negotiations are. And follow my LinkedIn. Okay, so that's it from the slides.
Nice, nice, amazing. I think I will steal this idea from you, having presentations only pictures, you know, it's way more
Oh, yeah, for
interesting
sure.
and interactive. Yes, I will definitely steal it. Great. So, questions. Let's start right from the beginning. So Use Voice is the name of our today's podcast, and it's gonna be all about the involvement of young people in the climate negotiations. In yes, and right from the beginning, I would like to ask this question: we are young, inexperienced, we lack knowledge, we lack many skills like negotiate, maybe even negotiation, and so on and so forth. And if we're like this, then why should anybody care about our opinion or listen to it or join us to discussions? I know it's important if so many great people are already doing it, but what is the reason? What is the reason for that?
Great question, which is pretty much the core, which has been the core of my work. So, first of all, I mean, the most immediate thing that you might think about is okay, being engaged in all of these processes. So first of all, it is a good experience for youth to learn all of these things. And then there's a concept of intergenerational justice. So it goes into the core of the climate crisis and environmental issues in general, is that on the example of climate change. The problem was created over decades and centuries by the generations that came before us, and they're being like continued to be worsened by the generations that are there. So, at its core, that means that we were born into the world that is already going through all of these issues that were created by the generations before, and we are the ones who are going to be witnessing the worst impacts of those issues. Because, as you know, as the planet is warming very um, gradually, or to some estimates, very fast actually, the consequences are getting worse. So that's heat waves, that's natural disasters. So, and we could discuss this further, especially on the example of testimonies in the National Youth Statement. Throughout my work, I have talked to a lot of youth in Uzbekistan and across the world, and just hearing their stories, you can see how they grew up being impacted by climate. So it is bringing these voices, bringing these experiences, recognizing them in policy making, because these issues that youth had growing up and right now are just going to be replicated and worsened over time. So we want to make sure that we account all of these voices when making decisions. And then participation in, so it's not just giving the voice, being heard, or having the seat at the table. It is actively participating at that table, because it's challenging, because you come and you sit with the people who have been in this sphere, or who have master's degrees or law degrees, who have a decade of diplomatic experience, and you come and you're very fresh, and you're very confused. But because the problem of climate crisis and other environmental problems are very urgent, we do not really have the time for us to wait and go through all of these decades of experience to actually start acting and bringing our voices to the table. So we have to speed run this process of getting this experience. Therefore, being like thrown into these spaces like negotiations just like makes all of this experience, like decades of experience, are being developed in just few years.
Yes, yes, such a speed, such a speed. So I think mm, uh, what I noticed in all of these climate negotiations, that people sitting at the top, not only do they try to include the voices of young people, but they also try to include voices of people from very diverse backgrounds. And just the last year, I learned about the term inclusivity. And honestly, I didn't know what that means. I asked for the meaning and I was shocked that such a term exists because it's so necessary. I wanted you to explain as well. First of all, what does it mean? Because maybe some of our listeners, also like me, that don't know about it, and also, why is it important? It is important to include young voices to the discussion, but why is it important to include the voices of people with disabilities to the discussion, or voices of indigenous people to the discussion? Why is it important? Yes, please.
Yes. So I'm very glad that the topic of inclusivity, sustainability is being very trendy way. Yeah, but and hopefully that participation, that inclusive participation, being meaningful, non-tokenistic, meaning that these people are being invited not just to check the box of, oh, we invited youth, we invited people with disabilities, check
Yeah.
check check, we're doing great, let's put it in our report. So I can explain this from my personal example. um, you will in when you say inclusive, that means that you're including the people who are underrepresented.
Mm.
So as you said, so that's youth, that's people with disabilities, that's people from rural areas, or people from migrant communities, because unless you actually hear their perspective, you, the amount of times I have had this realization that I talk to a person and then my whole mind is entirely changed. So, for instance, during the process of making the national youth statements, we have had consultations with the people with disabilities, specifically with girls activists with hearing disabilities. And then I was just absolutely stunned. Oh
Yes.
wow, I didn't know this. I didn't have any friends who have hearing disabilities. I didn't know what the experience is like, and they shared that actually we really want to participate in all of these initiatives. It's very hard to access information in sign language, and it's very hard to participate when there's no accommodation. And this year, it's like our very top priority to engage people with disabilities. And now we're trying to work like, okay, what do you need? Okay, how do we engage this partner, that partner to actually include you, me? Or another example is indigenous people. So indigenous people is people коренные жители,
Mm.
коренное население. So the people who have lived on the land, especially within the context of colonialism, on the land for centuries. So,
Yeah.
for instance, COP30, which happened in Belém, Amazonia, in Brazil, was the COP of indigenous people.
Mm.
So I got a chance to hear the stories of during that meeting with the UN Secretary General. There were a lot of speeches, and I actually made a LinkedIn post about it. I was
I
like, I
read
was
it.
holding my tears back. Yeah, I was so emotional because they were sharing their stories of violence that they faced um, because there's illegal mining, so they do land grabs, they have to protect their lands. Or, for instance, people from youth from Oceania, so small islands next to Australia in the Pacific Ocean, because of the climate related sea level rise, their entire nations are going underwater.
Oh.
So I knew that. But talking to them, seeing them, and hearing them talk about how this feels to lose your whole country, your heritage to this, it just completely switches your mind.
Yeah.
And having all of this, I hope that all of these stories and all of these voices actually change how people perceive and how people influence that policy, especially for decision makers.
Yes. Yes. Like, I can imagine living here in the comfort of urban life. We know nothing. We hear about climate change, but it's so distant from us. It's so distant. I myself talk about water, but I have water here, like in footsteps. I don't know the experience of those people who are really affected by it. And I think yes, everyone should be able to go and really listen to the stories of people who were affected by these problems. I have also read another post on your LinkedIn about an experience of a young girl, I guess 19-year-old girl, with hearing disabilities, and her taking trip in a bus. Yes, could you please talk more about it? Because I think the audience, this is a story that worth hearing. Yes, please.
Absolutely. I think all of the stories of young
Yeah.
people are worth hearing. So, what Nargis is referring to is one of the testimonies, one of the 6 testimonies that we included into our national youth statement. You guys can read them. And it was a testimony by Yasmina. She's 19 years old. She's from Tashkent, and she's one of the people who we consulted when reading the statements. Yeah, so whenever I wish I could include more of the stories of different people, but these are just some highlights. So her story was about navigating urban heat waves in Tashkent while having a hearing disability. And so the story goes, she is taking a bus. So it's either like May or like summer, and the bus comes very crammed, full of people. And I mean, it seems like a very usual situation, but it can get dangerous sometimes because it's too hot. You can get overheated, and some people are more vulnerable to heat waves than others. So it can get dangerous very fast. And because people do not understand sign language, she was not able to give a signal that it's like that she's feeling uncomfortable. And this is just one case that doesn't might not seem that significant, but it just shows her fear that if something happens, if a natural disaster happens, she's not going to be able to communicate, and because she cannot hear, she's not going to be able to hear disaster warnings,
Yes.
because they're not accessible in sign language. And she also describes generally, as I said, just the worry that people with disabilities are not able to access information, both life essential information, but also education, participation. So these are stories following what you said to my previous of we don't feel climate. I would actually not agree with that. So we're certainly, I personally am very privileged to not have experienced climate on the same level as other people that I have talked to. So I live in Tashkent. I feel like the only direct climate impact that I felt is also heat waves. So, for instance, people in my school getting very sick. We don't have ACs. We don't have water accessible, and then getting heat after heat waves. You just feel sick. You feel nauseous, and then you have to
Yes.
go home. But where do you go home? There's no trees. Na asfalcie. You have to go through concrete
Yeah. Under the
jungle
sun.
to get
Oh
home.
my God.
Um, and again, so talking to others, you can see that we are being affected by climate change. So beyond the story of Yasmina, there's also several more testimonies, specifically on youth who from rural areas and from the Karakalpakstan region who have grew up having to carry water. Instead of doing their homework, they have to spend their mind capacity and a lot of time to carry water, drinking water for their family, or having um, health problems because they couldn't access quality water. So it's not just about availability, but also quality of water. So that's why talking and being aware, you this will really open up your mindset and see that this problem is much closer than you think.
Yes, yes. Just reading about the story of this girl and how she described that if something happens, I will not even be able to know about it. It's scary. It's scary to put yourself into her shoes. Something is happening and you even don't know until it strikes you right at the face. It's scary. It's
Yep.
scary. And I think yes, we should be more inclusive and urban infrastructure should be more inclusive and I don't know with lights or somehow show it not only with these sirens when natural disaster happens but with lights maybe or in some other way. Yes, I was really touched when I read it on your LinkedIn post. I was really touched. So now let's jump to another event from your catalog of many events, and so that would be COP30. COP30. So when I went through again your LinkedIn post, there was so many mentions of very great things that happened there. So basically, for our audience and for me, one more time, could you please describe what is COP? Why do we need it? What could be the end result of the COP? Yes, so for now, only these three
Okay,
questions. Yes.
I can talk about this for hours. Um, so, just a brief introduction. COP is just a short version for Conference of the Parties.
Mm.
So, I'm not going to go into too much technical detail, but simply speaking, it is the annual UN Climate Summit that happens every year in November, and is hosted in like rotation throughout in different countries every year. And it is a 2 week conference, and it is huge. It is huge. The way I like to describe it is you go, there's like 50, 70,000 people attending from all over the world, and the just to put you into like the perspective, it's an airport-sized venue. It's huge. You have to take like 20 minutes to go
Oh
walk
my
from one
God.
side to the other. Yeah, I actually have time lapses of going through different spots. It's the legs hurt by the
Oh
end of
my
the day.
God.
It's the purpose, the core purpose is negotiations. So just to elaborate, we have mentioned negotiations several times already. Negotiations of climate agreements. So if you want to bring all of these countries together and to solve climate change, you have to agree on something. So this is a very legal environment where countries come and they negotiate text, so they negotiate agreements. So for instance, one of the examples of the most famous climate agreement is Paris Agreement. And basically the agreements outline, okay, by this date we have to do this, countries have to decrease emissions by this, or countries have to contribute to climate finance this amount.
Mhm.
So it's a very complicated process. I can talk for hours about it. But besides negotiations, so the way it looks, again, physically, imagine you have this huge venue and you have rooms like that are different size. You have many meets at the same time. There's many different themes of climate change because there's emissions reduction, there's adapting to climate impacts, there is, for instance, loss and damage, so dealing with the impacts that already happened. There's gender, there's inclusivity. There's so many different themes, carbon markets. So different meetings happening. Some rooms fit like 40 people. Some rooms fit like 300 or 400 people. So it's a very complex process. And besides all of this diplomacy talks, there's also space for multilateral participation. So that's NGOs are welcome, UN agencies, activists, private sector. So simultaneously with all of this chaos happening, there's also pavilions, countries and organizations. There's talks, side events. So it's just everything climate once a year comes together. It's very chaotic. You asked, what was the question again? COP?
It's okay. It's okay. I have another question now.
I
Yes.
might get off topic a little bit.
So there are so many rooms. What happens in those rooms? Like people sit and parallelly discuss only the text?
It depends. So there is stages to the text, and the text does not like fall off the sky when the COP
Yes.
starts. This is a continuous process that has been going for the past over 30 years. So COP 30, COP 1, 3, 4,
Yeah.
you got it. And they basically, when you come, you already kind of have the draft of the text that has been
Uh-huh.
discussed throughout the year. And the purpose is that the countries have to come and adopt it. So they have to agree on it. And they come, simply speaking, COP lasts 2 weeks, and first countries say their approaches. Oh, we think this about text, we think that about text. These are our priorities. This is what we would like to see in it. And then slowly they start working on actually changing the text itself. So I can show you a little. This is a guide to climate negotiations terminology. So I'm really glad. This is a very complicated process of like negotiations, legal text, all of this. And I'm glad that there's a lot of NGOs and think tanks supporting negotiators. So for instance, see, this is all
Oh my
just
God.
definition, word definition, word definition. So like insists, reaffirms, requests, recommends, recognizes. Um, so they have to agree on all of these little things. So not just how much money do we agree to give or how many percent of emissions, but also do we put or should, if you have studied like English, you know that there's difference between shall or should or might.
Mm.
So they have to agree on all of these little things. And one thing about COP is that the decisions are taken on the basis of consensus. So that means that, roughly speaking, that nobody opposes.
Mm.
So usually by the end of COP, you have this like text that's like very specific, very actionable. But usually, what happens is that text by the end of the COP gets very diluted. So, usually, if parties cannot agree on something, they soften the text, make it more vague, or remove some things, and you end up with a very general, very diluted text,
Mm,
which very much slows down global climate action.
mm.
So that's what it looks like. It's a very frustrating process, honestly.
Oh my God. Yes. And how long does it? I know that the whole event lasts like 2 weeks, right? I read
Mhm.
2 weeks. And for example, one session, let's say one session, how many hours can it take for a group of people to review a piece of document? Say from the minimum to the maximum, let's say.
Mhm. I see. So it depends. The way it looks, again, imagine there's
Imagine.
like, I don't know, hundreds of people sitting in this big palatka room. It's like usually sitting in a circle. And they have like a placard, they put it up, they speak, all of that. And they have facilitators, and they're sitting there, moderating the discussion, writing down the changes, all of this. Usually, at least at this COP, I think this COP was more like time management, as I observed, was a bit better. Nah, never mind. Um, Usually the sessions are supposed to be 1 hour, but very much often they are longer,
Mm-hmm.
and especially by the end of the COP, because you have to decide. And the reason that these sessions get very long is because diplomacy is time consuming, and everybody has to make their speech. For instance, first week,
Mm-hmm.
everybody has to make their speech, and the speeches are repetitive, or they cannot agree on something. You have to continue this discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And very often, so many times, especially during the last COP, we were kicked out by the volunteers of COP. So we have to empty the room. And sometimes the reason that it might take too long is countries are straight up just arguing. So, for instance, last COP, the negotiations for national adaptation plans, I think the two parties were arguing for 2 hours about if the secretary, UNFCCC secretary, sent out an email or not.
Oh my God.
That was my first COP, and I was just absolutely stunned. Is this what everybody came here for? Yeah, but usually they just postpone. Let's continue this next day, or let's continue this today. Let's meet. Especially by the end of COP this year, the negotiations were up until like 10 a.m. Oh, sorry, 10 a.m. Well, not a.m. 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Some people, core negotiators, were like literally sleeping in the hallways on the couches. So it's a
Mm.
very, very time consuming process. It's
Yes, yes, I can imagine. So many people. You said 50, 70,000 people?
yeah, around
Oh
that. But
my
that's
God.
including like activists, it's a lot of things happening at the same time. And people come and go. Not everybody stays for the whole entirety of 2 weeks, but yeah, it's a lot of people for sure.
Yes, yes. Usually, the more people you have, the harder it is to negotiate. Yes, and here we're bringing
Absolutely, yeah.
70,000. Oh my God. And
Yeah.
could you please tell more about what your role was in COP30 or COP29? What you did? Yes.
Mhm. So I was part of our delegation of Uzbekistan. So delegation of Uzbekistan is pretty much our national climate center, which is under the Committee of Ecology. So
Mm-hmm.
the former Ministry of Ecology. And my role, because so as a negotiator, you have to narrow down your focus to a track. So a track is basically a theme. So as I said, there's meetings happening at the same time, and there's meetings on adaptation, mitigation here, there, etc. That's why you cannot be in two places at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. Therefore, you have to take a focus. So my focus was and is climate adaptation. So it gets political, but different countries negotiate on different levels.
Mm.
So some countries like United States or Saudi Arabia are very active, like extremely active. They speak on every single negotiation, like every single thing. They
Yes.
speak. They speak. They give their opinion. However, Uzbekistan and I would say Central Asia and post-Soviet countries are not as active in
Mm-hmm.
negotiations, and they take more of an observatory approach,
Yeah.
because we focus more on cooperation,
Mm-hmm.
environmental climate cooperation within the region
Mm-hmm.
rather than within the globe, because there's like over 100 countries, way more than that. It's very difficult to actually be heard meaningfully. And because all the climate agreements are, as I said, diluted by the end, as a small country, it's very, very hard to actually put your 2 cents into the
Yes.
final agreement. Therefore, so my personal role was to, but even if you do not put your 2 cents in there, even if you don't have your voice heard in there, it's still very important to observe what the dynamic looks like,
Yeah.
because Uzbekistan still happening, and therefore, but following that, uh, session,
Shakhnoza? So this at times happens. It's okay. It's a perks of online podcast. So are you guys giving questions basically? Okay. So
can you hear me?
yes, yes, now I can.
Okay, amazing. I'm so sorry.
It's okay,
It
it's okay.
accept.
It's a perks of
Okay,
online podcasts.
great. Okay,
So we
let me
were
continue
on
then.
a part. We broke on a part where you were saying that basically post-Soviet countries are taking more of the role of observer. Yes.
Yes, yes. So it's still very important to be aware
Mm.
of the. Yeah, please. If I'm breaking off, please let me know.
Sure, sure.
Um, okay, cool. So my personal role was to attend all the climate adaptation negotiations, and to make reports to document everything that is happening, the general trends that are happening within on the tracks, report back, and also include of my input.
Mm. Mm. I see. Interesting.
What?
Yes. I also read that. So let me look at what I read. So I also read that within that COP30, you participated in use in water governance, multi-stakeholder and integrational dialogue for water and climate action. Right? Could you please tell more about this dialogue and what were
Mhm.
the key issues relating the water that were discussed there and some of the results of negotiations? That would be interesting.
Yes. So that was not negotiations. That was
Oh,
actually a side event. As I said, a part of COP, there's different pavilions of different organizations in different countries. So that was a side event organized by the Water and Climate Pavilion. We had several participants all coming from the countries of global health. And it was actually the topics were very similar to what we are discussing right now. So the narrative kind of went to the place of the boundaries that youth face when participating in climate and water governance, and our discussion really went into the place of like um, analyzing privilege of like being in these spaces, but also being representatives of the voices of the youth of our countries,
Mm,
for instance.
mm. So it was more about the engagement of young people in water and all of the dynamics around it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I see, I see. Were there any specific discussions on water in COP30 itself? Some key agendas, global goals, like by this
Mhm,
time we should be able to do this in water or something like this.
mhm. So my inputs into the COP30 outcomes will probably be adaptation related, as I focused in it. And as you know, water security is very big part of climate adaptation, because especially for our region, that's exactly what's hit the most and the first. So just to give you an overview of the outcomes of 30 on adaptation, the main themes that were discussed this year was the global goal on adaptation, which is part of the Paris Agreement. And the main discussions revolved around global indicators. So basically, adaptation. Adaptation is much more, maybe I'm biased, but adaptation is very complicated than many
Shakhnoza? Shakhnoza, I guess the internet is again a little bit laggy.
because mitigation, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, now I can hear you. Um, so we can start right from the point where we were talking about that adaptation is pretty much complicated thing. You were saying.
Please let me know.
Yes. Your camera is also off right now.
Nargis?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Me, because I think it's my internet. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Could you please turn off your camera as well, because it's glitching for me? Okay. Okay. Right. Yes, yes. So adaptation is has a lot of dimensions to it. So if mitigation is very straightforward, you decreasing carbon emissions, and then just figuring out how to do it in a sustainable way. Adaptation is adapting to the impacts of climate change, and the impacts of climate change are very wide. So they impact every single part of society, every single sector of the economy, for instance. And then tracking the very complicated part is, how do you actually measure? How do you actually track if if the countries are meeting the adaptation targets? So, for instance, you're saying that adaptation, we have to ensure that people have access to water. Then you have to actually track, okay, if they have access to water, okay, do they have access to quality water? Do they have
Mm,
access to water in specific communities or in the specific situations, etc.? Therefore, there's so much that goes into it, and the topic, the global goal on adaptation indicators, are basically a set of a whole list of indicators of, okay, we are measuring adaptation. We have to measure water, we have to measure health, we have to measure agriculture, we have to measure how sustainable the electricity, for instance, is for people, etc. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it started as, gosh, it was so many. It was 10,000 indicators at
Oh my
first.
God.
And then, yeah, there was a board of experts that tried to, and throughout the other conferences, they were just decreasing and decreasing that list.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by the beginning of COP, we had in September, we had like around 100 something indicators,
Oh.
and by the end of COP, they adopted 59. So
Mm.
the role of water in that is, as I said, water plays a huge role in adaptation. And there were several indicators on on water, and so concerning wash, so hygiene, water access, all of this. Although I could say a few things on if the final list of indicators is actually like useful,
Mm.
because the process of this COP was very unequal, the process of negotiations, because
Mm.
it went pretty good in the beginning, but especially during the second week of COP, all of the final decisions were scrambled, and they were done in like closed rooms, in behind the closed doors. They were done like in a very rushed manner. Therefore, the indicators are not the best, and it's still going to
Mm.
take years to actually implement them, for countries to actually use them. Yes,
I
that's
see.
what's.
I see. Hmm. Interesting. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk more. What kind of indicators? What are they doing? But we already have so little time and so much more to discuss. So so a big topic awaiting us is LCOY. Last year, Uzbekistan for the first time hosted
Yeah, no, my
LCOY.
memory.
Yes, and
Yes.
I heard a lot of feedbacks that it was one of like really very good event that was in Nukus. My dream is to visit this place one time, yes, and to visit
Yeah.
RLC as well. So, oh my God, what a great opportunity it was for my peers and for other younger people to already visit this place. So great. But what is interesting is how did this idea was generated to host LCOY in Uzbekistan? Yes, who came up with this idea, and then how was the process of preparation for LCOY? Yes, could you please talk
Mm-hmm.
more about that? And Shakhnoza, just before
Absolutely.
you start speaking,
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to make sure that you know that camera is not on right now. Yeah,
Yes, I
but
tried to turn it on, but I don't think my internet
yes,
is just gonna have a stroke. Sorry.
sure,
Okay.
that's fine. That's fine. Yes.
Uh, all right. So in terms of LCOY, it is actually part of a global movement. So
Mm.
LCOYs are organized all over the world, nationally, and they are part of a global movement that was initiated by Youngo. So Youngo is a constituency of youth organizations under the UNFCCC, under UN Climate Change Convention. And the goal of organizing LCOI, so imagine you have these conferences in different parts of the world. So one of the purposes is to bring youth together, build their capacity in climate policy, and just like going and being activists and being in climate themselves. And then, as we already mentioned, writing the national use statements, the role of which is first, ideally, guiding and informing the national policy of one country. And I feel like also a very important part of the national use statements in all of this process is just to show our partners, our governments, how what youth is capable of, how
Mm.
much we are aware of what's going on, and we are much more capable, because especially it's relevant in our countries that climate action, and especially youth in climate action, is not has not been seen beyond wearing green t-shirts and going and picking up the trash
Yes.
on the sidewalk. Nothing wrong with that. That's amazing. But we are capable of other things as well. So I feel like with all of the climate action that has been done, including Alcoy and beyond, um, we are proving as youth what we are capable of. And LCOYs are completely so we were endorsed by Global Youngo to conduct this conference. The initiative came from Young Climate Champions. So if you know, Young Climate Champions is a project of UNICEF, and it's basically a huge, amazing project that involves school students from across the country. So we got the endorsement by Youngo to conduct this conference, and all the decision making, all the action has to be youth led. So
Mm.
we did it as youth. Most of the parts, like most of the decision making on our own, and our partners, the government, the UNICEF, supported us financially. So that was an absolutely chaotic process. Honestly, the amount of like underslept, overworked. I literally had a few breakdowns during the LCOY itself, and because we did it for the first time. So Central Asia already had LCOYs in different countries, in Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and we finally caught up and decided to do it. So as a first LCOY, it was extremely challenging, but we learned a lot, certainly. And we are doubling the trauma and deciding to do it this year as well. And it's definitely gonna come in a more aware and better, more impactful way, hopefully. And we are gonna announce the applications to be participants of the LCOY in a few months, and certainly we'll hear about it and hopefully apply.
Yes, yes. Of course, we will scream about it all over the Hogwarts
Or
social media platforms. This is guaranteed. This is guaranteed. So, what is amazing is that I was actually in Young Climate Champions camp, yes, and I saw those children that later,
mm-hmm.
when I first came, they were just children to me, young students who were learning like at schools all of this, climate related information, sitting in my lecture and just listening to me at my little speech. And then the next time I see them, they're already organizing such a big event as Alcoy. I was like, what? What, guys? How are you doing it? And basically, the concept is amazing, is that and is so sustainable is that you take young people, you educate them for 1 week, and then you give them this task of organizing such a big event where they actually uh, where you can actually see the results of your investment. Yes, how
Mm-hmm.
well can they organize that? And in fact, when you just look at it from a side, from a surface, it's just an amazing idea. It's just an amazing idea of, even like, if we put it frankly, of getting back the investment that you put in them. But however, as a person who had to work with them personally, yes, could you please describe uh, many advantages and disadvantages of working with young people who
Uh-huh.
just came out of the school, who just came out
Oh yeah.
from the learning process? Yes, we are also young, by the way, but they are younger than us a little bit. Yes, so how great it was? Yes, because I believe it was great. And were
Mm-hmm.
there some parts when it was difficult? Yes, interesting.
Oh. So I have been in like this whole youth-led action for all of these years. So as I said, even the NGOs that I worked at, had entirely young, very young teams. And it's certainly challenging to because youth are new most of the time. So there are certainly youth who are experienced in all of these fears. They catch up, all of this, but especially for our country, because our region, because people are catching up on the theme, started catching up on the theme recently. Most of the youth of our region are not as experienced.
Mm,
So that's certainly a challenge. And but the greatest thing, as you said, about youth in general, I think that's just in our nature, and I hope we keep that nature, is that we learn extremely fast,
yes.
and we are capable of catching up on like work skills. There's so many young people who have better work ethic than like
Mm.
have been working for like 30 years, right? Um, and it is very essential to have trust in young people. And I was given trust as a young person in by so many people in so many different instances, which I'm very grateful for, because when you give trust and leverage to young people, they can feel like, oh, I'm not treated as a kid. I can
Yeah.
actually take responsibility. They allow
Yeah.
themselves to take responsibility and learn. So there's ups and downs for sure. But ultimately, it's just a very working with youth is a very refreshing. Bro, I'm saying, I'm talking like a millennial. But yeah, I love being in the youth led process, because young people see a problem and they know that they can do something about it.
Yes. Amazing. Amazing. Just great, great. I'm still amazed by this strategy. I'm still amazed by the structure of it's so sustainable because you teach them and then you don't leave them. It's great. It's great. You teach them and then you try to do something together with that knowledge. I love it, and I think we should bring it back. We should also to say it frankly still, but we can say adapt, right? To put it in a nice vocabulary, adapt the same strategy in Hogwarts school, because
Yeah,
usually we teach the kids and then we say goodbye, and then new kids come, we teach and say goodbye, another team. But in fact the experience of these young climate champions showed that these are the greatest workforce for whatever great projects you want to do. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah, amazing, amazing strategy.
yeah, absolutely. Any work that we do, so, for instance, this year, some of our LCOY participants are joining our organization team, and I'm actually very proud that our participants have like just being very new. So, for instance, before LCOY, we certainly get people who have some experience and interest in climate, but they went from like doing school clubs, so very grassroots, then doing LCOY, and it really like shows you what is the extent of action through examples, through capacity building, and then they go on. Okay, well, I can deal with problems structurally, and we have some participants who went on working in UNICEF, being volunteers for you, for UN, going and working at the ministry. So you just have to you have to equip with the skills. You have to equip young people with support, trust, and especially example, because until you see what you were the places that you can go, and then they can take leverage and actually do it.
Yeah, yeah, it's just such a huge potential, such a huge potential. So, uh, so we have little time left until we turn to the questions of the audience. So, as you
Mm-hmm.
can see, we wanted the audience, the whole podcast should have been about this last question. In fact, the national youth statement. And now we have like the last 5 minutes left to it. Yes. So, yes, Shahnoza, start speaking about this amazing piece of writing, please, so that the audience would know what is it and why we need it. Please.
um, um, I think I talked quite for quite a while about the national youth statement. The process, I mean, certainly doing it for the first time, spending a few months talking to young people, consultations, survey, analyzing the data. And honestly, I was so, as an organizer, my role was I was leading our team, which focused on policy, so policy capacity building. We also organized a model climate negotiations, and then did the statement. So that was like kind of the scope of my work within LCOY. And it was honestly probably the statement was the most challenging part, because it's pretty much like research. It's pretty much
Mm,
research. You take loads of qualitative data, and then you have to put it, and then you want to show um, your multilateral partners. As I said, the purpose of LCOY in the statement is to show what we are capable of and also present the inputs of all of these many people in a proper manner, and then make sure that the statement is like politically aware, aware of like all the policies that are already in place, what we lack, what we do not lack. We also analyzed, so for instance, Uzbekistan's country submissions to UNFCCC. We analyzed UNICEF's documents on like the state of disability or the state of climate. So that was challenging, and we had very short time frames.
Mm.
So we did it. We literally did it in like a month. The writing itself. So I really advise you all to review it. I would say that there's a lot of mistakes there because it was for the first time. We rushed it, but certainly I do believe that we gave a very good start, and we're going to do another statement this year as well.
Uh, do we have enough time? Oh, we don't. I wanted to ask about the future of this document, but let's see if. Oh,
Uh,
oh, okay. For
Maybe we
now,
can move on to
yes, yes.
participant questions if there's
S-
any.
So, dear participants, if you have any specific questions to our guest, you are welcome to give it in the comment section of the last post in Hogwarts School. Yes, if you want to know more about her experience, how to get into the sphere as well, or more about the policies, the documents, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes. But you know, Shakhnoza, what? I at times I want the audience. I'm jealous of their time. I want the audience to give less questions so that I would have even more chance to talk with the speakers. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Take your time. Give questions, and for now, I will use your time.
And
Mhm.
And everybody feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And my DMs there are always open if you're looking for knowing anything about knowing more about anything that I talked about, or also being engaged in the movement. But I already mentioned the projects that are already there, and so any of those projects you have a chance to apply and be a participant of, and it's a great it's a great place to start. It is the place to start.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have Fazl John with his hand raised. Is that
Yes, so Fazl John, if you want to give a question, you can give it in the comment section. Yes. So feel free to write there your comment. And regarding the LinkedIn of Shakhnoza, it's already given in the pre-last post, the announcement post. If you just press on her name, Shahnoza Rakhmanova, then you will be directed to her LinkedIn page. So another way to connect. Okay. Oh my God. So all right, what I wanted to ask you, the last question that I wasn't able to ask, but I wanted to know more, is your post on LinkedIn actually so emotional, so sincere, and maybe so relevant to many, many young people that are just starting to come into this profession? So,
Mhm.
to just remind you, what was it? The name of your article, in fact, you wrote an article on LinkedIn, was The Reality of a Young Climate Negotiator. I read that post and I was like, I feel the same. I'm not a climate negotiator, but I'm also a young
Um,
person in a field, and I feel the same. you know, um, yes, this imposter syndrome when you come into the room with this people with so many years of experience talking about the terms that you don't even know about is really
yeah.
pressing. Is really pressing. And how did you manage? How you said you also wrote as a young climate negotiator you have to work twice. You have to work twice.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how was it for you to work twice?
twice. So I can give an example of COP as well, because like it's such a big place. You're so confused. It's like the phrase I like to use is the legal system that is like 10 years older than you. So you come,
Yeah.
everything is already established. These negotiations, these agreements that have been going on for 30 years. And then, especially when I joined the Climate Youth Negotiators program, the people there, so I was one of the youngest, and I still am. Um, and all of these people have like master's degrees, they have PhDs, they work for the government, they're researchers. So that's the general, I feel like, as you said, it's relevant for all youth to feel the imposter syndrome, the constant like comparison. But and also the whole process is very confusing. So when I came to COP29, I did my homework, I did my course, all the learning, I tried my best, but I came in and I just didn't understand what's going on. But it all, honestly, I do feel like I belong now in this community, within these people. And in terms of my phrase of working twice as hard, so as we discussed, you're young, you don't have all of these decades of experiences. You're all young, but also in my case, also a girl. So nobody, it's hard to be taken seriously in all of these spaces as a 19-year-old girl. So there's different, so you constantly have to question the status quo. You have to prove yourself, you have to work, you have to make up all of this lack of experience that you understand that you don't have. But ultimately, it certainly does have a lot of impact.
Yes. Yes, amazing. I want to talk more, but now some questions
Yeah,
from our participants. So, a question from Jafar. Hi, Shakhnoza. I'm a young climate champion of second cohort and LCOY participant. My question is, are you guys planning to organize M COP in the upcoming LCOY? Because I was unable to participate this time. I think the last time.
I see. So I'll try to make my response brief because unfortunately I have to attend another meeting right now. But yes, absolutely. So we will have LCOY 2026 and we are absolutely organizing COP. Yes, for sure. And I hope that you'll be able to join this year.
Great, great. Shakhnoza, do you need to join another meeting right now, or can
Yeah.
you join it like after 7 minutes, or like right now, right?
Yeah.
Then I think the rest of this people, your questions could be answered by Shakhnoza maybe in text. You can also
In the
access them.
chat.
Yes, in the chat, maybe by simply by text, like sure,
Mm-hmm.
and writing.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. I'll do
So
that.
yeah, great.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Shakhnoza, for your time. It has been a
It was
pleasure.
my
Yes,
pleasure.
see you.
It was my pleasure. My EMs are always open. So see you guys.
Yes, yes. Bye.
Bye bye.